I hope everyone is doing well. If you're new to our town halls, then welcome. If you're not, I hope that you're having a great time, and we're happy to see you guys back. For those of you who are new, I'm just going to do some housekeeping before we get started, just a little bit about Thrive and what we do, who we are. So Thrive is basically just a space for Montessori leaders to connect, find support. It's a tough job. You have to wear many hats. And sometimes it's hard to find support when you're at the top. So we kind of created this as a safe space. We have our member site where we exchange resources to help Montessori schools everywhere. But we also have these free weekly town hall meetings as a space for people to connect and find support. And we like to discuss different topics that are relevant. Most of them are requested by attendees or members. And this one has been requested because I think over the past 2 years now, we're in the pandemic, there has been a lot of conflict, whether it's with staff members or whether it's with parents, maybe disagreeing with how schools are handling the pandemic. And it really puts leaders in a tough space. So I thought we'd create a town hall kind of focused around conflict resolution strategies. So I see in the chat, hi Camilla, it's 2:30 a.m. where I am. I'll keep my camera off. No worries. I think you're a real champ for being here at 2:30 a.m. your time. No worries. You can keep your camera on or off, and you can use the chat if you have any comments or questions. This is going to be kind of an open forum. I just created some slides to keep the conversation going, but I'd love to hear your experiences with conflict in the Montessori administration role. What has worked for you? So we'll definitely have some time for discussion, so you can feel free to comment in the chat or just unmute yourselves if you'd like. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to share my screen. And I have some slides just to kind of get the conversation going. So yes, conflict resolution strategies. So just a little bit about what we're going to be talking about. I really want to emphasize that this is an open forum. So please, at any point, feel free to comment in the chat, unmute yourself, stop the presentation. We'd love to hear your experiences, your advice, your questions. Just going to be emphasizing the 5 key goals of leadership in general, and then how to identify conflicts, what bullying and harassment is and how to identify that. Conflict prevention, and informal and formal conflict resolution strategies, as well as conflict resolution with parents and families. Unfortunately, a lot of us have been there. It's just part of the job. It's good to have tactics in place. So let's go ahead and just kind of dive into it. I already mentioned kind of this is a safe space for leaders. I just want to emphasize that. This is all of us here are Montessori leaders, administrators, or have been in that role before. All right, so before we dive into conflicts, I really want to emphasize 5 key goals that all leaders should have. And this is just information that I pulled from various different books and academic resources that really emphasize, that really focus on what leadership should look like and what leaders should aim to do. And I think this should really guide people when they are kind of figuring out what they want, how they want to navigate conflicts in their school. So first and foremost, being open, fair, and consistent in a leadership position is going to help you just across the board, but especially when it comes to conflicts. Treat each employee with equal respect or dignity. Picking favorites can easily lead to conflict. Even if you may not be realizing it, it's good to check in consistently and make sure that you're not excluding anyone of your staff, that everyone is getting a chance to speak up and feel included in your community. The same rules and expectations should apply to all members of staff. Doesn't matter if someone's been at your school for 10 years or 1 year. It's just important to remain consistent and fair. And consistency also helps you to create a workplace culture where expectations are understood. So just having this in mind is going to help you when it comes to conflict resolution later on. Handling conflict and people management issues. I think we all expect this when we accept the role of leadership in any position, whether it's at a school or in another job. Good leaders really must be prepared with having some sort of people skills and know how to mediate conversations. It's important to learn how to approach conflicts, how to have plans for several different scenarios, even unexpected ones. I think these past 2 years have really taught us how to be prepared for the unexpected, understand how to manage people, and recognize that your staff members are individuals. They each have their own working style and personalities and characteristics. It's important to understand everyone as an individual. Another really important key element of leadership is providing knowledge, clarity, and guidance. Lead by example. I think that's probably the best way to establish guidance and kind of create a good, healthy work culture. Make sure your staff understands expectations and guidelines as well. Whether it's a staff handbook or you just have meetings where you touch upon the goals and missions of your school, and offer guidance from the beginning and consistently check in with your staff and check in with purpose. We touched upon this a couple of weeks ago when Cheney from Schools of Excellence came in, but I think that checking in with purpose, not just dropping by and seeing if they need help for 5 minutes, actually having a conversation and spending quality time with your staff members is really going to help you gauge where they are. Number 4, building and sustaining relationships. Again, I think finding place to make connections in the workplace is really important, especially when we're in the midst of a lot of people feeling burnt out and just low energy. It's important to encourage healthy connections within your community. Set the tone by leading with positivity. I'm really sure that a lot of you already know how to do this really well, but it's important to kind of stick through it even when times get difficult. Create opportunities for connection amongst your staff as well. Meetings, socials, events, even if they're virtual, even if they can't be in person at your school at the moment, it's important to create these opportunities for casual connections and friendships, if that. Check in with staff regularly and acknowledge their accomplishments as well. This is really going to help your staff feel valued. When someone feels valued and happy at their job, it just creates a space where conflict is less likely to happen. It still may happen, but it just it kind of makes it a better working environment in general. And finally, as a leader, you really want to aim to support development, create opportunities for all of your team, understand your staff members each have individual working styles, play to their advantages, understand their strengths, and use that to help them feel more accomplished in the workplace, utilize those skills that they have, and include members of staff in important conversations as well, when appropriate, of course. But it's good to have those team meetings where people can feel included. Definitely want to have those things. So with that said, that kind of sets the tone for, what we're aiming for here as leaders. And that's really ultimately why we're talking about these leadership goals, because when you aim to be a good leader overall and you understand fairness, it will help you prepare for conflict resolution. All right, so let's talk about identifying conflict. I'm sure a lot of you, already know the signs of when things are going to start heading south, but let's really talk about that. I see a comment in the chat before we move on. Can we have a copy of this, the lecture notes? Yes. All of our presentations are going to be posted on Montessori Thrive for those of you who want to reference these. And these are also going to be posted in a PDF if you guys want to have the bulleted kind of conflict resolution guide. So let's dive in about identifying conflict. So what does the conflict look like? I'm sure many of you have experienced your fair share already in the role, but it can really occur in many different ways. For staff, work issues can look like poor attendance, bad timekeeping, or gossiping. It may not necessarily be that. There could be a lot of personal issues in someone's life that might affect them from having poor attendance or timekeeping, but sometimes that could be a sign of conflict in the workplace. For parents, it might look like disagreements with school policies, disagreements with teaching styles, and how conflicts are handled in the school. It might be really obvious to spot, such as a heated argument, or it might be less visible, simply just excluding people from school events, or meetings or important conversations can also lead to conflict. So let's just, dive into some obvious sources of conflict. These are pretty easy to spot. Unacceptable language, aggressive emails or phone calls. It's pretty easy to identify when a tone is really aggressive. Theft, if a member of your staff has taken something from your school, or a parent, or there's that issue. A negative review on your school that is really malicious and intended to kind of just tarnish the name of your school. An argument, or child abuse that either a parent or a teacher has carried out as well can obviously lead to conflict. Those are really easy to spot. Usually when conflicts are obvious to spot, it's been things that have been building up over time, or it may just be one kind of out of place explosion that may have been caused by something going on in someone's personal life, or just them being completely burnt out and just done with everything. But these are pretty easy to spot. Less obvious sources of conflict to include, and these become really important to identify because these are the ones that can boil over. Differences in personality or working style. Taking credit for other people's works or ideas, not valuing other people's views, background, or experience, talking over people in meetings, failing to include people in conversations or recognitions, ignoring people or being discourteous, and gossiping with other staff, or sometimes this happens amongst parents as well. All of these things, they might not be as blatantly obvious as a heated argument or theft, but they should be treated seriously, and they could definitely lead to a bigger, more explosive conflict. So I'm just going to stop here and just kind of identify bullying and harassment. This is a word that these are terms I really want to identify and put them in a really technical sense. So bullying or harassment may involve a single or repeated incident across a wide spectrum of behavior. This can range from extreme forms of intimidation like physical violence, or more subtle forms like an inappropriate joke or ignoring someone. This is something that you should really aim to eliminate in your school community, whether it's among staff or parents. And keep this definition clear in the workspace, whether it's in your parent handbook, in your staff handbook, and make clear that you have a no tolerance policy for this type of behavior at your school. No matter how obvious and easy it is to spot, or how difficult it is to spot. All right, some common types of bullying experienced by employees in the workplace. And this may have happened at your school in the past. You may have had to deal with this before with some of your staff members. You may have had to mediate some conversations, being undermined or humiliated at one's jobs. Persistent and unwanted criticism, unreasonable pressure about job performance, public humiliation, shouting or very heated arguments, verbal abuse, and just isolation and exclusion. So these are kind of the big points that you really want to try to avoid. The first defense, prevention is better than cure. And I'm going to talk about ways that you can prevent conflict so that it doesn't happen. So here are some practical steps that you can take. First and foremost, get to know your team better. By getting to know your team as individuals, you'll really be able to build better relationships and understand where people are coming from so that you can avoid conflict altogether. You can understand someone's personality a bit more. You can understand the way that they work. And it kind of just creates a tone of empathy in your work culture. Fostering good working relationships is really healthy. You can really anticipate potential conflict within the team if you identify that two people have really difficult different working styles. You're kind of prepared to mediate conversations or say, you're so much better at this and you're so much better at this, so why don't we divide the responsibilities this way? Let's talk about what works for everyone. Understand any personal pressures which might be affecting them at work. If someone's having a hard time at home, they might be late for a month or so. If they're having personal issues, they might not be able to be as consistent with attendance for a temporary time. So coming from a place of understanding is really going to help you avoid conflict and just make things uncomfortable in the workplace. And talk frankly about any problems a staff member might be experiencing. Just a few things to consider with this topic as well is you really want to understand what matters to your team. Everyone is different. Everyone has different values. What triggers their stress? And do they feel supported ultimately in their role? Ways that you can figure this out is by having one-on-one meetings regularly, just checking in, being able to ask them how they're doing. Are they making time for themselves? Things like this can help you really identify those points. Give every team member a good induction when they start a new role. Onboarding is really essential. And we've said this in some of our past meetings as well. We've talked about onboarding when it comes to staffing, but doing this from the beginning and really building a strong foundation is going to encourage effective team working from the very start. And it's going to reduce stress. It's going to reduce any risk of conflict in the future. Make yourself personally available to talk, whether it's having an open door policy or office hours where you welcome staff in to talk about their concerns, or maybe even an anonymous comment box, something like that, to start conversations. And try not to shy away from personal issues when staff members want to open up to you and when it's appropriate. People aren't always able to leave their worries, their stresses, or domestic responsibilities at the door when they enter the workspace. All right. Number 2, be aware of simmering tensions. I think we're all observers naturally as Montessorians, and we can see when things are, kind of going south with people, with staff members, when there are maybe some forms of aggression at play. It's important to kind of be able to spot these and act swiftly when they do. Invite a conversation and try to resolve the issue before it gets serious. Some things to consider here, really monitor staff relationships. Be confident to challenge any hint of inappropriate behavior. If you hear, what may seem like innocent gossip, but it may be a little bit deeper than that, just shut that down immediately and say, we don't talk about other staff members in a negative way or in a negative space. Even if it's just a joke, it might be misconstrued. Not everyone takes things the same way. Again, having those regular one-on-ones is really key. And making sure to intervene and talk to individuals about what's happening and what's the real source of the disagreement, what's the root of the problem. Number 3, when it comes to prevention, acknowledge when a team member is causing stress to others. Sometimes it might be a case where there's one person who's really causing disharmony amongst your team. Whether, they're being overly critical, not sharing important information, having a really short temper or negative attitude, making negative or personal remarks, avoiding tasks, and just not being dependable when it comes to time or attendance. The best thing you can is to not assume, and just to check in and ask what's happening. Never kind of necessarily point the finger when this happens, but just pull the person over for a chat and have a conversation about what's going on and how you can support their needs, whether that might be taking a week off to relax or to recharge, or to maybe have less responsibilities in the classroom if possible for a moment of time. It's important to be able to spot this disharmony within your team and find a way to fix it before it becomes like a formal issue. Things to consider in this area, really encourage people to talk if they have concerns or work issues, if they have a problem with a coworker, that they have a way to report that, and be prepared to step in and talk to the individual as soon as you're aware of the problem. Don't let it build up into something bigger and more aggressive. All right. Number 4, be clear about your expectations of team conduct. This is really key, and this is, I guess, comes into play if you have a good onboarding process or a staff handbook. It's really important to kind of really be clear about expectations and work culture in your school. Just like you said, every school will have a mission when it comes to how they want to serve their families and students. You should have a mission when it comes to staffing as well. You'll really need to spell out what behavior is tolerated and not. Put it simply in black and white. This is unacceptable behavior at our school. This is how we want our staff to behave. We want to encourage a positive space. And how you interact with families and with staff is really important to us. And of course, lead by example. And that's really going to be key. Things to consider in this area: always discourage employees from gossiping. I think this is probably what leads to a lot of workplace conflict, even if it seems innocent. Ignoring this behavior is going to lead to resentment. It can lead to cliques. It might even lead to someone wanting to leave the job because they're so uncomfortable. So it's just better if you shut that down whenever you can. Again, equality, treating all your employees equally and fairly. Respecting an individual's points of view as well and background. And then number 5, when it comes to prevention, is to try not to get involved in office politics. Though a certain level of gossip is inevitable, really important to maintain objectivity and resist the urge to join in, especially as a leader. This is only going to fuel the fire. It's only going to cause more problems. So if you need, if anything, just observe rather than partake, and engage when it's appropriate to step in and when you need to speak up. All right, some things to consider here. Really important to keep employee issues private and confidential. If they're coming to you and expressing that they need to take some time off or they're feeling burnt out, respect that is their private information to share with you, and don't share it with any other team members. What you want to really create in your office is a safe space. If they choose to share their personal lives with other staff members, that's on them. Encourage an open environment in which everyone's contribution is valued. Always give positive feedback where it's due to help foster collaboration and effective team working. Positive feedback goes a long way, and it makes people feel valued, and people who feel valued are much less likely to pick fights in the workplace. If office gossip does become malicious, intervene immediately, shut it down. Whether you have to have a meeting where you mediate or just resolve those issues, those kinds of behaviors are not welcome at your Montessori school. All right, so if you've done everything you can to prevent, and there's still a couple of issues of conflict, the best way to resolve them is really by doing them informally. Once you have a formal kind of on paper conflict resolution, it just becomes a little bit more stressful. So this is kind of the plan B, and maybe a more formal process would be a plan C. So let's dive into kind of some informal ways. Really, it just comes with being prepared to facilitate at all times. Whenever conflict might arise, whether it's with a family or with a staff member, make sure you engage in challenging conversations as soon as you begin to observe early signs of conflict. This shows that you're treating the conflict seriously, and it's so much more difficult to be respected if you've appeared to give certain behaviors kind of like okay, I'll let that slide. It seems like you're being unfair, and then that might even lead to more conflict and gossiping, and it's kind of a cycle that never ends. So just always be ready to facilitate, call out things that are not acceptable. Speak to each staff member individually, especially if there's a disagreement amongst a group or a pair of colleagues. Start by having informal one-to-one discussions. You can really identify the root of the problem a bit better, and it gives you a better place to mediate conversations if you need to move forward with more serious meetings on these conflicts. Another way that you can kind of help conflicts informally is to bring both sides together. So once you kind of met with individuals involved in the conflict, you have gained a clear understanding of what's going on, you can bring them together and try to help find common ground and really resolve the problem long term. The capacity to do this skillfully will depend on not only your ability to handle conflict and people management issues, but having built and sustained relationships and create an environment that is open, respectful, kind, fair, and consistent. All right, protect employees by removing them from conflict situations. There are those instances where conflicts have become particularly heated. Hopefully those haven't happened at your school, but if they have, it's important to know when to remove an employee, whether it's from the presence of a parent who's being extremely negative or the other way around. In these situations, in order to handle conflict effectively, it might be necessary to separate team members, or if it gets to the point where it's really abusive and it's bullying and harassment, it's unacceptable. If termination is needed, you might have to move towards a more formal form of conflict resolution. I see some comments in the chat, so I'm going to read those out. Marylou, this is excellent. Okay, I'm great. I'm really looking forward to hearing some comments and thoughts at the open discussion as well. What if someone doesn't want to change? You know, there's a conflict in thinking and everything, but what are other ways? If someone doesn't want to change, it becomes really hard because really ultimately conflicts are resolved with some sense of compromise. In relationships and workplaces and teams, somebody has to be willing to go halfway. And if they're not, then you might have other things to consider, whether it's separation from who they're having conflicts with, or if it gets to the point where it is serious, they're always causing conflict, draining, stressing. It might be better for you to terminate. I don't know the situation there, and obviously a lot of people are not in a position to let people go because staffing is so difficult at this time. But invite them. Sorry, Camille, you can step in.
Yeah, is this a parent or a staff member? Hypothetically, I know we're just talking in hypotheticals here. Because I guess either way, you know, I would look at it as, you know, either if they're a staff person, you know, you know, your director is so good, always support, but what if the teacher you are working in a room is always like wants to be two-faced? So it's a staff member, I'm gathering, and it's maybe like maybe a teacher assistant relationship kind of thing. It sounds like that may be what it is. And I would bring it to the attention of the director if you can, because they're going to be, yeah, staff relationship. So I would, you know, bring it to the attention of your director, and your director may have to mediate that relationship there. And it is really hard, I know, because I know with a teacher and assistant in the classroom all day together, it really is a special relationship, and it needs to be supportive on both sides. So I don't know, does anybody else have thoughts around that? I mean, that's not an unusual thing because the teacher and assistants are together so much. I'm assuming that's maybe what the situation is. I don't know that for sure, but.
Yeah, there definitely needs to be a synergy with teachers and assistants. And if that's not there and there's no director so supportive, that's good. Yeah, I would say mediating a conversation and having meetings and talking about kind of what is making one party feel negatively or both parties feel negatively around what's going on. If anyone else has any other thoughts on that, please feel free to drop them in the chat. I'm going to finish off here with the slides. Let's see if there's anything else. A comment here. I know in many countries, trainings for nonviolent communication are organized for staff. I think that's very helpful to help transform people and school culture. In some countries, such as France, it's even sought after training that schools look for. That's great. And then Shaza says, peace building activities amongst the staff. Yes, I think team meetings, one-on-ones as well. Anything where you kind of can help establish a good culture is important. Valerie here says, you're so right. Prevention is the key. Yes. Empathy situations where you have to be in someone else's place. Very important. This is kind of part of the informal as well, is gather ideas for conflict resolution from your team. Invite them to take part in creating and establishing a culture of positivity in your school. Hold a discussion on to brainstorm solutions, to talk about what kind of culture they would like to work in, what kind of environment they would like their workplace to be. Many of us spend more time at school than we do in our own homes. And for that to be a toxic environment, it's not fun for anyone. So invite them to take part in setting the tone. We have some comments here. I think we need to walk into our jobs knowing this is work and not personal, and maintain diplomatic relationships with work and keep the rest separate. I think that it's important to identify that that's how you feel about work, and to let your staff members know, I don't like to bring my personal life through the door. I like to keep things professional. That's my preference. This is why it's so important for leaders to identify every individual styles. Whereas some people might want to come into the workplace and it's really important for them to talk about other things going on in their life, because this might be the only socializing they have during their day. It's important to understand where everyone is coming from. Brittany says here, I've asked staff to discuss a productive working relationship. They have been a part of identifying why it all worked well. When then took those positive aspects and worked to develop a way to incorporate them into a current relationship dynamic. That's really positive. Again, I think so much conflict resolution can come if you work together as a team, and if you highlight everyone's ideas and make everyone feel more included, and create a safe space in your workplace. Another form of prevention is to follow up consistently as a leader. It's tempting to kind of take a step back and say, wow, everything is so harmonious. Everything is working so great. There's no conflicts at my school. But when we step away too much, we might miss some things, and it's not always the case. One party might still feel upset after a conflict or after a fallout. Part of handling conflicts really effectively is following up as soon as it's appropriate to, and consistently as well, to make sure that things have been resolved. I see a comment here in the chat. I apologize for the off-topic question, but is there a way you can send me the link of this recording so we have some, our staff can watch it as well? Yes, we will be posting this in our Facebook group. I'll drop the link at the end of the call, so you guys can share it or reference it whenever you may need. All right. Now for the last resort, using formal procedures to resolve conflict. We may have been there, and we may be having to prepare to go there. It's important to have good tactics in place for this as well. Ultimately doing things formally, writing them down, having really formal one-on-one meetings, it should really be the last resort, but it may have to happen. Even when you've made every effort to prevent or resolve the conflict informally, sometimes things have just maybe gone too far and it has reached the point of harassment or bullying. If a complaint is really serious and an individual wants to investigate a conflict formally, they should have the right to do so. It's exactly why companies have HR departments. Sometimes if your Montessori is not a really big Montessori, as a leader, you might be that HR department. So it's important to have these strategies in place. Have forms and processes available for this. You should have a form for if employee wants to place a complaint or concern about harassment or bullying in the workplace, they can fill out the form, whether it's anonymously or they can include their identity, and talk about what problems they're having in the workplace and why they feel negatively. Process these complaints swiftly and take them very seriously, and disclose this process in the staff handbook. Make sure that every staff member knows where they can go to if they're having an issue in the workplace or they're feeling uncomfortable, and remind staff members you have an open door policy. You are always there to talk about problems if they're really just not doing well in the workplace. Conflict resolution with parents and families. This one's a little bit trickier to navigate because ultimately in the Montessori space, these are your clients. This is the community that you serve. And it can get really delicate sometimes. And you want to be sure to handle these kinds of conflicts with empathy, understanding, in a really appropriate manner. So again, prevention is key. Include a code of conduct in your parent handbook. Really make clear the expectations that you have for parents in your community from the beginning. When a parent joins your school community, welcome them, give them an orientation, hand them a parent handbook and say, this is how we expect members of our parent community to behave in our school. If you have a problem with the teacher, this is how we take care of it. If there's a problem with how misbehavior is dealt with in the classroom, this is how you can talk about it. We can set up a meeting for it. And also simply say, we don't encourage gossiping in our community. We encourage a tone of positivity. If you ever have any issues with members of staff at the school or how things are dealt with, we encourage people to, reach out to us via email. We'd love to have a conversation. But, make clear that harassment or aggression are not welcome at your school. Be assertive. I think this is something that as Montessorians, we sometimes find really difficult. I think we're really gentle at heart. And sometimes when a parent responds in an unacceptable manner, it catches us completely off guard. And we might be scared to respond in a firm manner, but it's really important to stay firm, stay polite, but stand your ground when things get complicated. Again, this is where fairness really comes in. When you're a fair leader, it really helps you to stand your ground and be more assertive. These are the rules that apply to everyone. We don't do special one-off things for every individual person. If we did that, we would have 5 million conflicts and 5 million what ifs. What about my special situation? So it's important to be assertive. Do not allow a parent to speak negatively to you or a member of staff. Again, instead, invite them to talk in a one-on-one in a way that's positive and constructive. Know how to respond to negative reviews. This is obviously happening a lot more in modern day, where people can post reviews, whether it's on Google or Facebook, and the world sees these. So first off, if you get a negative review that is abusive, that might have a racist comment, or just a malicious, really hateful comment, you can report that and get those comments or reviews taken down. That's not acceptable. And Google or Facebook will take those types of reviews down. So first and foremost, if it's a comment like that, automatically report it and it will get taken down. Now, if it is a comment of a parent that, had a negative experience with your school, they may have not handled it in the best way themselves. What you want to do is you always want to respond, always respond, never leave a negative comment there with nothing. A great way to respond, just an example, is something like, we regret to hear that your personal experience was not to your satisfaction. We wish you well in your future endeavors or searches for schools. For all others, we invite you to reach out for more information on our wonderful Montessori community and programs. And then invite parents who have had a good experience to share their positive reviews, because those are always going to outweigh the 1 or 2 bad negative reviews that a malicious parent may have left. Important to know how to handle those situations. finally know when enough is enough. And we've had some of these stories shared in the past where we've had that one parent that they just take so much time, energy from your staff. They stress out your guides, they stress out you, and they're just so time consuming. It's really not worth the energy to keep them around at your school. When this happens, you really have to prioritize the mental well-being of yourself and of your staff members. And you may have to not accept the family when the next academic year comes around, and you may have to sit down and have a meeting as to why, and try to kind of end the relationship on a positive note and on amicable terms. A great thing to do is have other schools prepared if they're just not a good fit, recommendations or resources for them. If it just gets really nasty, unfortunately, you may have to be in a position where you prioritize yourself and your staff. We have some resources available for conflict resolution on Thrive. Of course, we have our forum, which is private, that we encourage you guys to ask questions on if you have any tensions in your community. Also our Facebook group, which I will share the links to now, but I want to open it up to some discussion. I'm going to stop sharing my screen, and I see we already have some comments in the chat, so I'll start by reading those out. All right, Spring says, thank you very much, Brittany, for sharing. This is to Brittany. I think it's effective way to overcome difficulties together. Never underestimate the power of good team synergy when it comes to leadership, and really include your staff in important conversations. So that's really great. Brittany also says, as an HR person, oh my gosh, I'm so happy we have an HR person here. Document everything, even the beginning conversations, to address behaviors. This will make the formal processes a lot easier. That's a great tip. Keep a breakdown of every comment made. You can pull out the receipts that way when you need to mediate and you have the full story there. Marylou says, be sure to date your documents and conversations. Yes, I think record keeping can be really beneficial when it comes to conflict resolution. Does anyone have a code of conduct that they're willing to share? We have a few code of conduct documents on Thrive, if you remember. If not, check out our Facebook group. We might have had a few shared on there as well. I'm not 100% sure. Camille said, yeah, we have one on Thrive. Diane says, does anyone have any parent behavior expectations in their handbook? Camille already responded, yes, we have that parent handbook at my school. Yes, I believe the one that we do have is from Hollis, and it's great. It's a really great conflict resolution. All right, I would love to open it up to personal experiences, comments, ideas. Feel free to unmute yourself, to drop it in the chat. Has anyone had a really difficult situation with a family this year, with a member of staff that has led to conflicts? I see a hand up, Julie.
Hi, I'm Julie. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
I had a situation not too long ago where I'm really small. I have a one-room schoolhouse in a building beside my house. So that's kind of the setting. I'm the only teacher. I don't have an assistant. I only have 10 or less kids. And so I had this mom, I don't have a handbook. I'm very close with my parents, and communication is very verbal, and less on paper, but I'm getting better at that. And so that's kind of the background of it. But this parent would come and drop off in jammies. And the jammies got to the point where they were not appropriate in front of children, in front of husbands. And and this person I had known for several years. I think she lost her job. They moved to an apartment. I think things got bad. And I felt really bad, but at the point where I, wanted her to understand that it's not appropriate, but I didn't want to be personal, offend her.
Mm-hmm.
So I sat down and had a, personal one-on-one with her, and then she ended up leaving abruptly, not a word. So my question is really, when you have a situation like that, and of course, all the paperwork, I wish I would have had more handbook, all that prep ahead of time, but we have contracts from August to August. And my question is, when those things happen, do you really fight the contract or do you just let them go, especially when it's really hard on a small school's budget?
Right.
Anybody have input on that?
Or just other experiences that they've been
Yeah.
there?
I have found it really hard to, have someone adhere to a contract if they've left in a negative, situation. So, and sometimes it's just not worth chasing after it. That's my experience. Diane, you have your hand up. Do you have some experience?
I actually have the opposite experience right now. With COVID, I have a parent who was very upset because we had to shut down, and he just came up with a number of what his tuition was going to be and decided that that was all he was going to pay. And I tried to reach out to explain that, there's late fees and we weren't applying the late fees, but, the tuition had to be paid. And it's not the first time that I had to have conversations with him about it, but every time we talk, I'm trying to come to the agreement that the family doesn't belong with us anymore, and he just will not leave. So I've got to the point, like, he threatens all the time to do bad reviews, to get parents up in arms. And I've tried to tell him, that we need to have mutual respect, that we have to have agreement, and how can we agree to move forward? And it's even hard to get off the phone with him when we do have conversations, because he just seems to enjoy a challenge, so to speak. And the thing is, his kids are wonderful. We love them. We want to keep them here. But I've tried to get him to leave on a mutual agreement multiple times, and he just won't go. So I keep trying again to start the base and say, we can't have a toxic relationship. I can't be threatened. And even tried to bring it back to the staff and how they would feel if something happened. And but once again, last time I restarted, I sent him a parent handbook again and explained that our policies and procedures are not threats, because he felt like he was threatened when I mentioned that we weren't going to apply late fees. We just needed him to pay the tuition. And I want to keep this relationship in a way because I feel like maybe there's value to it, right? When you have somebody who's so angry and against you that if you make them if you can somehow come to a mutual agreement, they can work with you and be a good advocate for you. And that's what I'm trying to do. But I just don't know when enough is going to be enough and when I can ask him to leave and he will do it. So it sounds really strange, but he just won't leave. So it's the complete opposite.
To me, off the bat, it sounds like harassment, or like Marylou was saying in the comments, he's an intimidator.
Yes.
And that's really difficult. But when it comes to harassment, ultimately your aim should be to eliminate that altogether at your school.
Definitely.
I feel for you, because by the sounds of it, it does not seem like an easy task at all. And it's really hard when you love the children and they're such a good fit in your school. But I know Camille has said this in some of our past meetings. Your Montessori school might be right for every child, but it might not be right for every parent. And ultimately, when you're building a school community, you want the right students, but you also want the right families.
Right.
Is it work? How much is it affecting your mental health, the mental health of your staff? Also just coming in and basically pricing his own tuition is just incredibly
right. Yeah.
That's not how you work.
It's dead, right? Like, you can't go into a store and pick up an item and say, I'm only going to pay this much for it.
Exactly. That's not how life works.
Yeah.
I think this all comes down to really being assertive, and standing your ground, saying these are our expectations of families here. And these are the rules that apply to everyone at the school. And if you're not willing to comply, then this is not the right place for you. And we will not hesitate to escort you off of
Exactly.
I don't know any other comments or ideas on that.
I think
Martha.
from the last experience, I would just say, from my point of view, I don't think it would be worth it to chase after them for the contract. So
Also, it personally sounds to me like if he were to leave a negative review, he would look like one of those really crazy, bitter parents that usually are. If when I look through schools reviews, there might be one and it just seems like, wow, I think they had a really, maybe they were the problem if it's just one negative review against all the other good ones. So don't take that too personally if that ends up happening. Don't let that scare you if it's just becoming too much of a problem to deal with them. I think Martha had Martha and Laura. I don't know.
I'll go first. About the small homeschool place, I would just let that family leave and just wish them well. And it won't serve you or the child or anyone to try to get money back. It's just not okay. With the father, I'm wondering how long the relationship has been with the school. Is he also experiencing pandemic job loss? Is he, stress and tension that way? And that's why he's asked to set a different tuition rate. It might be worth their.
Sorry, he actually owns his own business.
Is it thriving? Or is he
He says it is.
or?
He says it is, but I don't know.
Okay.
Yeah, it's definitely based around COVID, though. He's very angry at the world, I think, with COVID and the effect that it's had on his children. Yeah.
I wonder if it might be one avenue to take is to talk with them and ask if, maybe we can accommodate the lower tuition right now, but is there a way in the future that you could maybe incrementally, help us out and pay that back? We're able to meet you halfway, just to try to be supportive and keep those children where they need to be.
Yeah. Thank you.
I had a father once try to negotiate down tuition and just held firm, because for me, I look at it as they don't understand the value that we're providing, and that he was very capable to pay full tuition, and just was saying, how about, I think he had more than one child, and, was trying to get a better sibling discount. I can't remember the exact details of it, but I think what it comes down to is just, it's really hard when you start making some exceptions, then you just start down this road of, and then parents talk to each other and, well, he's paying less, and, so I think it's just so important to hold your ground when it comes to that, because it just can really snowball into something that's, you don't want to have to deal with.
Yeah, thank you. And he did make it clear that he doesn't have a problem paying it. He can pay it, no problem. I think, and he literally said that he did that to get my attention. And that's what he did. He got my attention. So, but thank you.
Sorry you're experiencing that, Diane. I see Laura's had her hand up. So Laura, what did you want to add or ask?
I'm in Missouri, and I know that, we have a contract with our parents too, but we, in the state of Missouri, you cannot collect on any services that you have not given out yet. So for example, if someone brought their child and they were behind a week or 2 weeks, for say, we could collect on that. But if someone walks out and they're up to date, we can't collect on any money on services that were not rendered. So our contract really isn't a contract. It's more of a just kind of a nice thing to do. If you're going to leave, 2 weeks would be nice, and we would offer the same thing to you. So I know that people can walk out and I'm not going to get the money. So, being on top of tuition and, making sure that, I'm collecting, every week or every bi-week or monthly, however they're paying, being on top of that is super important for my school. But, the contract is just, it's kind of like just a verbal promise on my end. And I have had on the other one, I've had parents that have tried to intimidate, and they're the 10%. They're the 10% that make 90% of your problems. And then you have the 90%, then all the other ones that, that are wonderful. So, and you just have to learn how to eliminate that 10%. It doesn't mean that you're not going to get another 10% at some point. But, when it's not worth it. It's not worth all of that pain and for your staff and for you and all the extra time that you put in for that one man or that one family that gives you such a hard time. So.
Thank you.
Mhm.
Thanks, Laura. I see Marylou also has her hand up. If you like anything to add, Mary.
Well,
Marylou?
first of all, you did a great job, really great, just covered everything. I was just going to say that to me, it all starts with the admissions process or interview process. Because your presentation covered both employees and parents. And so I think to really understand who the school, what is your school? Who is your school? What is it about? If you are clear in your head that this is what we offer, Montessori school, these are our values, these are our core principles, these are our expectations. I absolutely think that everyone needs to put together a handbook for parents and a handbook for faculty, where all of these things are spelled out. That's kind of part of your prevention plan. And then if you do run into conflict, because it's human nature to run into conflict, I think at times, this is not a job for the faint of heart. It really takes a lot of courage to be very quick and observe. I mean, I did a course with independent school management once, and they say leadership is about leaning against the wall. And I agree with that. And by that, what they mean or meant was we should be, and it's so hard to do. It's so hard. I found this very hard, really available at arrival, during the day, at dismissal, such that you are seeing what's going on. And I'm not saying you're in each classroom, but you're around enough that you begin to see patterns of behavior in your employees and your parents, and be very observant about that and very quick. So instead of waiting to do a review, if you will, of a staff member, as we typically do mid-year and then at the end of the year, actually, you can be observing your staff member from day one, and if on day 5 they snap at a child and you see that, it's really important to go to them privately and say, you seemed a little harsh today. That sounded harsh to me. We need to talk about that. So what I'm saying is you can't sweep anything under the rug or you're going to trip on it. So you have to be available, very observant, get to know each of your employees and each of your parents. Act swiftly. If you are in a terrible conflict like the one described, I would suggest that you be in touch with your attorney if you can. Document date. I documented at one point and left out the date on a particular conversation that I should have had. But it's so important at that when you really get together, and if you have an intimidator the way it was just described, remember you can end the meeting. You do not have to sit there and receive verbal abuse or anything. And I did that with an intimidator who was being very verbally abusive about one of my teachers. And I tried negotiating very peacefully because that's my nature. And finally I stood up and I said, this meeting is over. You may leave. And this man blew up. I mean, I don't think anyone has ever done that to him because he's a bully, but it had to be stopped right then and there. So I think courage is the other thing that I would say to you, keeping in mind that at the center of all our decisions, I believe, is the child. So I just wanted to say that.
Thank you, Marylou. I see some good good responses to that. Elizabeth also says, never meet with a parent like that on your own. That's good advice. Alyssa here says, we have a school package information that we give to parents during the school tour before they enroll. Do you think it would be useful to add a code of conduct to this package or information, or that if that information should only be given once they enroll? If it were me, I would give it as soon as possible. It's kind of your screening process, as Marylou just mentioned, kind of an interview process to see if they would be the right fit. Just so they understand the expectations and decorum that's expected at your school, really. That's a great question, though. Shaza here says the office can have a very simple one-page code of conduct put up every month through your school software newsletter and post it in the waiting and office area. When you update it, it keeps Parents' eyes fresh. That's a great strategy as well. Something like this, she even went into putting here ethos. The only ethos of the school is to foster good relationships between members of staff, the child, and between members of staff and other children. Bullying, harassment, victimization, and discrimination will not be tolerated. The school and its staff will act fairly in relation to the child and parents. And we expect the same of parents and children in relation to the school. Thank you for sharing that, Shaza. That's really helpful. I think it's a great idea to kind of post that around meeting spaces around your school, just as a reminder of what is and is not tolerated. Harassment is absolutely not permitted. Thank you for that. Are there any other comments? I wanted to share as well the link to our Facebook group. Just this, it's a space where you can ask questions, connect with other leaders. Feel free to share your scenarios and ask for advice. I also wanted to share a really good article I stumbled upon that talks about dealing with negative reviews. If this happens at your school, if you're ever faced with a negative review, how to respond. I'm just going to share the link to that article. It's a really good one. Thank you so much for everyone who attended. I will post this conversation in the Facebook group. So if anyone wants to watch it or share it with other members of their staff or just make notes, they can find it there in the group I just shared. Also, for any of you guys who are Thrive members, we're doing our February parenting education series. We just had our first session yesterday. It was great. It was about adolescence. Great, amazing speaker who is an AMI guide in the adolescent Montessori classroom from Hollis Montessori. The recording is up already. If your parents missed it, you can share it. And next week, we're going to be joined by Tim Selden and Lorna McGrath for our parenting session as well. I hope everyone has a great week. If you have any other follow-up questions, you can post them in our Facebook group and our forum. We're happy to answer them or to connect you with leaders who can help. Thank you all so much for taking an hour of your day to join us and learn some valuable strategies for your school.
This was very well attended, so it must be a topic that
if you guys ever want to talk about this topic again, please let me know. We organize these around your requests. So if anything, we're also looking for town hall speakers as well. So if you know of any Montessorian who wants to share their wisdom, please direct them to me. I'm going to drop my email here as well. I would love to invite some bright minds to lead future conversations. We've had some wonderful speakers. All right. I hope everyone enjoys the rest of their Thursday.
no conflict for the rest of the day.
Yeah, hopefully.
Have a great day, everyone.
Bye.
Hi, Camila. While everybody's saying goodbye, can I ask you, is there a simple way to share the next week's session with for parenting with our parents?
For them to register?
Yes.
Yes, Ellie, I will email you the link. I will give you the event link. All you have to do is email it to them and they should be able to register for every class.
Okay, but if they have to enter anything, if there's any information they need to enter.
The only thing they will have to enter, I believe, is their email, because that's how they'll receive the Zoom link to join.
Okay, they don't need to say the school's name or anything like that?
They do need to say the school's name too.
Yeah.
So is there a drop down or is it something they need to fill in?
I believe they need to fill it in.
Okay.
It's the
So
Zoom registration.
Yeah,
So,
okay, so I'll just tell them to fill in and I want to make it easier for them. Copy paste, click here, copy paste, goodbye.
Mhm.
And this way it's more guaranteed that somebody actually will sign up.
yeah, it's pretty simple. I think it's just name, email, and then what school you're associated with.
Okay. If you send it to me today, I'll put it on the school calendar. I'll publish it. I'll do a promo for it as long as I have it a week in advance. So if you send it to me today, I'm happy.
Great.
I'll send it to you right now so that you have it. Okay.
Amazing. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you so
We
much.
are loving our website, by the way. Gabby and I are crazy about our website. We love it. So
I'm so glad. Yeah, great. I'd love to hear that.
thanks.
All right. Thanks, everybody.
All right. Thank you.